I had the thought in my head because I was going back and forth within myself, like, stay with the church, be true to myself, stay with the church, be true. And in my mind, I would repeat the phrase, it's the church would prefer a dead Mormon versus a queer Mormon.
Hey there, it's Jules. Welcome to Jules Unscripted, Living Life Without a Script podcast, where we chat about the beauty of aging, learning what authentic means to you, and how to build your dream life one step at a time. Get ready to hear stories from incredible people who learned what it takes to build nothing out of something. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Jules Unscripted. Today, I have Sarah Forrest here with me, and Sarah and I met in a very unconventional way. Sarah and I have been friends now for, oh my gosh, like since 2013, something around that time frame, a very long time. And yeah, and how we met is very unconventional and very crazy, so to say. And I'll do a little bit of a backstory on that, but first of all, I wanna say welcome, Sarah. Thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And so this conversation is a very deep conversation, and it talks about scandal. It talks about being true within yourself and finding what's really best for you. So, I will start off by saying how Sarah and I met. Sarah and I met through my old relationship. I was in a relationship with a boy, because let's face it, he's a boy, and we'll call him Jay. I think that's a good name.
Okay.
I think that's a good name for this person. And so I was in a relationship with Jay for, gosh, I think about like a year to a year and a half. And it was mostly long distance. We met through friends, and I would go down every so often to visit. He would come visit me like a handful of times, not many, but it was mostly long distance. But it was a relationship and it was pretty intense. And so we ended up having some kind of a rocky part of our relationship, kind of a little bit towards the end. Jay had cheated on me once before, and then he's cheated on me again. And the second time that he cheated on me, Sarah was the other person. And so Sarah actually reached out to me and was like, "Hey, this is what's going on." Because I kind of found out that he was being weird and that he was being secretive. And I was just like, what is happening here? Like, who is he always hanging out with? Why is he like being weird with how we're talking and things like that? And so I'm pretty sure what happened was Sarah realized that he was still talking to me, that we're still figuring things out, and then reached out to me about what was going on. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? And so my memory is a little bit hazy, but that's what I believe happened. And Sarah is also here to talk about her side of the story and what happened with him and how how they started and when she realized me, and just kind of like the overall theme of what happens when you're been cheated on or the other woman, and what happens when you realize, no, like this isn't what I need in life, this isn't what I want in life, and this is who I am, and I'm proud to be me, and someone will love me for who I am. And so Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and I can't believe that this is happening, that we're having this conversation, and that this moment was a pivotal moment for both of us, because not only did we have hurt, but we also found a beautiful friendship with all of this too. So again, thank you for being here, for being honest and sharing your story and just kind of explaining more of your thoughts and feelings behind everything that went down and how you overcame everything and became the best version of yourself that you are now.
Yeah, for sure. I think backstory, I guess, a little bit from my side. So Jay and I actually met in high school. So we had known each other for a while. We did stage tech together, and he was 2 years older than me. So we only knew each other for about a year, but was friends and knew two other women that he had dated during high school, the one that he was originally with and the one after, and just a lot of, kinda his doings with that. And I think it's important to reference that this was in Utah. At the time being, I was a really faithful member of the Latter-day Saint or Mormon church, and Jay was an on again, off again kinda member. Like, I also knew his brother and his sister and his family, and hi his family was very, very faithful in the religion, and so religion does play a big part of this. But I had gone on one of the church service missions, and when I came back, I was, living at home. I had about a summer before I was gonna return to college down in the southern part of the state, and I had run into him, and I was like, "Oh, hey, like, I haven't seen you in years. How's life? How are things going?" And just, like, reconnecting as friends, because we were friends in high school. I thought he was a pretty cool dude, and he would tell me a little bit about some of the going-ons, how life was going, and yeah, we started, hanging out a lot, and then at some point, he talked about, like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I'm in a relationship, but it's not going too well," and he would kind of vent his issues with the relationship towards me. And to be frank, a lot of it did kind of revolve around religion, with Jules not being of that faith. And in the culture, it's very frowned upon if you want to be an active member of the faith and not be in a relationship or married with someone of the faith. And so, you know, I think he was definitely going through a lot of internal conflicts, and at least from my point of view at the time, I was like, "Well, you need to figure this out, right? You need to come to the conclusions for yourself. You need to figure out, like, where are you going in life? What do you wanna do?" And to be frank, if this person, this long distance relationship you're having with someone isn't fulfilling your needs, if it's not aligning with what you want in life, or at least what he thought he wanted in life at the time, then the kind thing to do is to end it. Like, ending relationships, having been through many of them, it sucks, but it's better than dragging people along. And, for a while, for a time being, I thought he did that. Obviously, you know, with the relationship being long distance, I didn't know anything on the side. But then it became frank as we started to get closer. I was like, "Oh, you're still talking to her. She still maybe thinks that everything's good on the relationship side point," and that didn't quite sit right with me. So I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna reach out. I'm gonna see, like, how her point of view is," because I, never wanted to be the other person in a relationship. And even though, like, I had been able to learn and grow with him, I was like, I don't wanna be that other person. I don't want to be essentially a homewrecker. That I don't really know a lot of people who do. And so, yeah, kinda bringing that to the forefront, and then the little bit of a fallout that went from there, which, of course, like Jules said, it's a very unconventional way of kinda having the first contact with each other, and especially looking back of all the time that we have been friends and been connected, is like, "Oh, that's basically the first thing I ever said to you was like, 'Hey, I think he's basically cheating on you with me, so let's figure that out.'"
And I do remember when you told me that, I was like, "Wait, what?" Like, I'm so confused, like, I thought that you're just a friend, like, I don't know what's happening here, and so, when you messaged me that, it was just kind of like I I think I blocked most of it out, but I think what happened was I was kind of, like, taken aback and shocked because not only did he was cheating on me previously, but it's like I thought he was stopping that. And it took me a moment to kinda calm down and to see, like, what's going on, and then when we finally, like, sat down and talk about things and I heard your side of things, I'm like, "Okay." Like, he definitely has a lot of stuff to work on, and that's not me, but at the time, I was just, like, really upset, and I'm like, "I don't like this," and I think we weren't friends for a while after that and then, like, reconnected again, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's such a huge thing. Me, myself, being, like, gender expansive and not being quite aligned with some of the religious philosophy now in my life, I think it's entirely valid that a person maybe doesn't want to be monogamous, maybe doesn't want to be fit into that box, into that mold, and I think that's absolutely valid, but those type of relationships have to be communicated, and I think, yeah, he had a lot of learning and growing because honestly, that's kind of essentially what happened to end our relationship after that because I was getting ready to go back to school. He was doing so much better at going back to church, and he when he broke up with me, it was really interesting because the way he phrased it, so I don't know how he kind of phrased things with you, but with me, he's like, "Well, like it if we're together, like I'm just gonna bring you down, like essentially saying you're so much better than me, and like I'm just gonna bring you down, and I don't want to ruin like your eternal soul kind of idea." Which, as things in my life kinda developed after that, is kinda hilarious to think back on.
Right, because now you are no longer part of that church. Now you've grown into someone completely different and more open, and just someone that I was like, wow, like Sarah really changed so much. Like, I never would have thought who you are now. Like, if you told yourself who you are now, who you were back then, your back then self would be like, wait, what?
I think at first, like, I would be super scared to, like, learn all that, and then to, you know I would be so full of guilt just because, I mean, that's such a big thing that led me away from being religious is that guilt complex. Yeah, if I met myself. But then, yeah, he broke up with me and it was sad. And then almost immediately afterwards was dating this girl that he met at church and he told me like before he broke up with me, he's like, "Yeah, I've made this friend and like she's super cool." Turns out they were probably starting a relationship before he ended our relationship. Long story short, with that one, they got married like 3 months later and then got divorced like 3 months after that. So, you know,
Yeah, we
again,
both knew that wasn't gonna last.
it was like learning and growing, I guess.
Yeah.
But, I as I've reflected on my life in general, and it's not just this relationship, but many relationships to my life of thinking back, like what did I learn from that relationship? And I would definitely say one of the biggest things that I learned is it's best to be authentic. It's best to be yourself, and if people aren't going to accept you for you, then it's really not worth being around them.
Mhm.
'Cause honestly, I would say that Jay was probably one of the first people that I verbally came out to as I was, like, coming to realizations about myself of like, "Oh, I'm not straight," and that's a big deal in the church, and so, coming out to him and the way that he was accepting of me was, I think, probably the slippery slope that just kinda sent me down of being like, I need to realize that being myself is the best way of doing things and then surrounding myself with people who do actually care and support me. And so as I'm away at college, of course, like mourning the loss of a relationship and the next following 3 years were honestly just like repeated journeys of self-discovery of being willing to listen to myself and listen to my heart instead of being kinda led and guided by what I was always told growing up that I should be, that the person that I should become, and being away from home and family really led me to kinda open my mind to things, and yeah, that honestly led to, like, kind of a lot of repeated processes because it was during that time, like you said, a couple years of not talking to each other, and then I reached out to you because I was gonna be in Vegas for I don't remember what I was gonna be for that reason, and I was like, "Wait, I know a few people down there," and I reached out to you, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be in Vegas, like, we should get lunch or something." I don't even remember, because I don't know, that's the type of person I am. If I know people in an area and I'm in an area, I like to visit. And then, yeah, that's when we started having kind of the awkward conversations at first, for sure, but then also giving me the opportunity to, like, finally put a face and a person with you and to really come to realize that maybe some of the negative things that I heard really just aren't true and, you know, might have been skewed or manipulated in some way, and really helping me to understand, like, okay, no, like, I need to figure things out for myself and not just kind of be agreeable with what I'm told in life.
Well, I will say thank you for having an open mind and for kind of seeing more of, like, who I am instead of being what you were told. I think a lot of people have been told certain things about different people that it's like, well, this person doesn't seem very good. Like, I don't wanna be around them or associate with them, and so they never really got to, like, experience who they truly are, and so I appreciate you, reaching out and be like, "Hey, like, let's get lunch, let's hang out, let's do something and get to know each other a little bit," and I definitely think that through that, we were able to really see, like, "Oh, yeah, like, this person is actually pretty cool." Like, I see why, like, Jay would like this person, but at the same time, it's like, why did they pit us against each other kind of thing. Like, why was it like why did they say negative things when it's like, no, like we're just trying to make things work. So I do appreciate you coming by and wanting to like hang out and talk and get to know me in a different light. And I really appreciate that. And also, too, I wanted to ask you when you were in college all those years trying to like find yourself and be who you are and realize, oh, like maybe I am part of the LGBTQ community. Maybe I am this, maybe I am that. How did you come to terms with that? While being part of the LDS church and with your family, because I know that's a really big aspect of the LDS church is your family life, and, like, were they accepting of you? Did you tell them? And, like, how did you grapple with the fact of, like, "Yeah, this is me. This is what I believe, this is what I think of, and this is what I believe now." Like, how? Because you said you did a whole missionary, so, like, how did you come from missionary to the thought process now, and how did you not go into that? Because because I'm trying to, like, what I'm trying to say is you just seem like such a much lighter person, and you seem like the person that went through some trenches, but it's like, it didn't completely I guess, fuck you over maybe? I don't know if that makes some sense, but do you understand what I'm trying to, like,
Yeah,
ask? Yeah.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
I think really off the bat, yeah, it messed me up, and I think that's why it took years, and there's still times that will struggle with certain things of either my upbringing, my childhood, but a lot of the religious trauma that really came from those situations, and as I've delved more into my religious trauma, I realized that a lot of those things did start a lot earlier than I remember or first remembered. But as I was going through college, I would struggle in general. Like, ever since I was a teenager, like, it was known that I had depression. And so those were things that I would struggle off and on with. And obviously, because my parents helped me get some kind of treatment for that, it was known. But I got to a point where I was really struggling with my classes, and because the program that I was in was a very kinda tight-knit cohort, there's only 11 of us, and then our program director, I had a classmate who expressed some concerns to my program director, like, "Hey, Sarah doesn't seem to be doing okay, and she might need some help." And so I got pulled into a meeting with my program director, and he's like, "Hey, we have on-campus counseling, you know, I can't, like, force you to go to counseling, but maybe this is something you can look into, and since you're a student and it's on campus, it's completely free, so maybe." He's like, "I can't fix all your problems." He's like, "I can help you in your classes, but that's about it." And so, yeah, I was like, "Oh, well, now I'm in trouble. Now I have to go to counseling." And so I went and I started counseling, and that was the end of my junior year. And over the summer, since I had a job and I was staying local, I was like, yeah, let's just throw myself into all the counseling. And so pretty much anything my counselor was like, hey, you should do this, you should do that. I was like, I'm going to do it. And so I was meeting with him regularly and we were delving into stuff. I also did some group therapy quite a bit actually. Group therapy was really awesome. And then another type of therapy called biofeedback where they connect sensors pretty much on a lot of different parts of your body, and it helps you visualize through your body's responses and how you can control and manipulate them with your emotions and other somatic functions in your body. And so making all those connections, having like deep summer dive. And that's when I really started to realize that my struggles weren't just normal everyday struggles, I think is a way to say it. Because people do like to commiserate and be like, "Oh, my life is hard, this is difficult," or with the mission, people are like, "Oh, yeah, it was really, really hard," and they would kinda talk a little bit about some of the difficulties. I'm like, "Oh, well, you think that's bad," and then starting to realize and with my counselor be like, "Oh, no, I actually went through quite a bit of trauma on my mission, and I was not in a lot of safe situations. Like, I was put in danger, both, like, mentally and physically, and the people around me who were supposed to be there to help me, to protect me, because even though I was an adult, I mean, to be completely frank, I was 19 to 21, like, you're still essentially a child, like, it's your first venture out, and you need help, you need support, you need someone to help protect you, especially where I was in, like, East LA and some very dangerous situations, and the people that were supposed to be there for me, the protectors I was supposed to have, didn't do that. And so that started to kinda crumble my belief in, like, the structures of the church and the foundational beliefs, because it's very much a you respect the authority, you respect the people that are above, and you're told, like, they will be there, they're protecting you, they're watching out for you, and then to go through time and time again of like, "Oh, they're not. They're they're actually quite fallible, and they don't have your best interest," and really, in a lot of ways, a mission is run a lot like sales and a lot like customer service, and I think that's why a lot of missionaries will get sales jobs after they come home because that is what you're doing, you're selling a religion, and so that really started to crumble my thoughts and feelings around a lot of that stuff, and as I was going into my senior year, I started to separate from church. I wouldn't really do a lot of the activities that I used to. I wouldn't really I would attend, but I w I was starting to meet people who were from different walks of life, and through especially group therapy, be in a situation where I was with people who had gone through either similar things, different things, and be able to understand myself and others, and we got to a point where we had a higher up, really higher up, church individual come and talk to the members down at the college, call them like devotionals. And this man is still alive, and the fact he is still alive, and the fact he has so much power and influence in the church makes me really, really angry at times. But anyway, besides the point. Me and a lot of people, including a lot of people in my group, we attended this because 1, it's kind of expected, like, "Oh, an apostle's coming, so you have to come listen to him." It's like, okay. I went in there, I just wanted peace and comfort, right? I just wanted to feel some sort of spiritual experience, some sort of spiritual comfort, and this man started talking about something called the November situation, November 5th, I believe. And in this situation, it was back in 2015. the church made a decision that if a child of queer parents, so, one of the parents is in an active, like, LGBTQ relationship, that that child wouldn't be allowed to be baptized and become a member of the church until they are 18, and and they would have to essentially denounce their parents. And not a great policy. I was on my mission at the time when it was released, so I didn't quite understand a lot of the fallout with that, but I could see the effect it had on people. And a lot of people, members and non-members alike, had issues with that policy and the way that it basically explicitly is there to destroy families.
Yeah, that's not what I remember the LDS church trying to be about at the time. Like,
Right?
it's supposed to be
Right?
about family and love and acceptance, and the fact that they announced that, it's like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, everyone was like, "What is going on?" So, yeah, so this guy, he starts talking about that situation, and at this point, it was 4 years after it happened, and he talked about that at church headquarters, they received hundreds of letters. I think that speaks a lot that a lot of people are like, "Hey, no, this is not okay." And he basically said he that he was surprised that he thought that those hundreds of people would think that they would actually care to read those letters, and he
what? He
started
said that?
laughing. Yeah, he started laughing, and the crowd started laughing about that,
That is
and
insane.
yeah, exactly, and honestly, for months leading up to this meeting, I had the thought in my head because I was going back and forth within myself, like, stay with the church, be true to myself, stay with the church, be true. And in my mind, I would repeat the phrase, it's the church would prefer a dead Mormon versus a queer Mormon. And it was really just solidified in that moment because that's a lot of what those letters were saying of like, these are high vulnerable populations. These are people that need support. And you think it's funny that people were sharing their messages of, "Hey, this has caused mental turmoil and this has led some people to die by suicide." And they just laughed about it. And it was really a breaking point. It was a breaking point for me, and thank God I had that group because literally the day of group after that meeting, all we talked about in that meeting was essentially debriefing because most of us who were there, believing or not believing, we were just devastated. We were in tears and we didn't know how to process it because it's like, here's this church leader who laughs at our existence. Here is someone in the group who had written a letter, and knowing that essentially their pleas fell on deaf ears was just devastating. And it really helped that someone in the group wasn't a member, wasn't from Utah, wasn't raised in it. And he's like, if you believe in God, I don't think that that would be the message that God would have. And
Exactly. No,
exactly.
I agree with that because I've had some arguments before with some people who are very religious and the fact that they were like, "Oh, I remember this one person go, I have a like one of my best friends is gay, but I can't be their friend anymore because that's not like part of the teaching of the church." And when I heard that, I was just kind of like, "What do you mean? Like they've been your friend since for years and like, why is their preference over who they wanna be with matter? Like, wouldn't God love everyone who they are and trying to be their most, like, authentic self? Like, I can't understand that, and so the fact that the pastor, I think, that he's just, like, laughed at these letters that people were saying, like, "No, like, this isn't okay, this isn't right, like, they should be accepted." It just breaks my heart too, like, it's crazy that people think like this sometimes, and it's like, these people have lives and they have love to give. It's just not in the way that's traditional, and that's okay.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, at that point, I was basically I was like, "I'm done. There's nothing left that is keeping me there," because, here for context, the man who said this, he is next in line to be prophet. He is next in line to be leader of the church when the current prophet passes away. So, prophet, kind of like a pope. And there are people that love and support him, and they think he's a super cool dude. And I was like, this man is heartless. This man, he was a judge in Utah, and that's the judgments that he has. That's the mindset he has, and that yeah, it broke me, and I realized for myself, I was like, if I'm going to continue literally being alive, I I think I need to leave. And so, yeah, that was it. That was in the ex-Mormon community, they call it that's what broke my shelf. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. I was like, that's it. And once that gate opened, things changed.
When you had that realization, did you feel like a lift off your shoulders, and were you like, "Oh, shit, like, how do I go about this now?" What was that process like for you?
Yeah, basically, I think kinda like you said, that it was a little bit of realizing that I wasn't tethered to this, but also it was scary because in the church in general, but especially for those that were born female, they very much try to dictate how your life is gonna go. They're very much like, "Hey, so congratulations, you were born to have babies and to get married and to have babies. That is all you're going to do, and that is all you should do in life, and that's all you should want to do." And that was never something that connected or resonated with me. And but then I still had those thoughts of feelings of like, "Okay, well, this is what I should do, though." And with that being taken away, without the kind of roadmap, the idea of being told what to do with your life, I was like, "Oh, shit, this is all up to me now." And I started to take risk. I started to honestly probably do what a lot of people do in their teenage years, I started to explore and be like, okay, let's figure this out. Let's ask questions to the right people. Like my friends that I had growing up, none of them were members of the church, and which was very unusual to be able to find all of those people. But, reaching out to them and being like, "Hey, so I really don't know like what do normal people do? How do those normal people live their life?" Yeah, I turned 21, but I wasn't drinking, I wasn't smoking. In fact, side note, didn't take my first drink of alcohol until I was 24. Same with coffee. I it was very yeah, I was very delayed in really what a lot of people experience in their adolescence in that situation. But yeah, getting ready to graduate college, and I knew I wanted to go to grad school, and so I started really just kind of focusing on that. I'm like, "Okay, so I need to focus on my future and my career and kind of see where that takes me." And so I was like, "I wanna go grad school." I decided I wanted to go to UNLV, couple different reasons, and it happened that I did have a friend that lived down there. Like I said, I have a few friends in Vegas, and so I reached out to him because I knew he had a house, and I was like, "Hey, are you still living at your grandma's house?" And he's like, "Yeah, we moved grandma out, but it's just me." And I was like, "Cool, I'm looking at going to university down there. Do you think we could be roommates?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, we could totally make that work out." And so I was like, "All right, that's it. I'm gonna be going to Vegas. I'm gonna go get my master's, and I'm just going to be open for those experiences." And I At this point, when you are a, I guess, full-fledged member of the church, done the whole temple stuff, like, yes, wearing the garments or the magic underwear, as people call it, and I'd been wearing them for years up that point, but realizing that obviously, like, those don't resonate with me, and then just making choices for myself, and in a funny way, because the church gives you underwear that you're supposed to wear, like, I didn't have other underwear. Like, that's kind of a weird thing to say, like, I'm a 24, well, 23-year-old adult, and I was like, "I don't have underwear?" That's not church sanctioned. I don't know, it's so weird to think.
Yeah, that's very strange. It's like,
Right?
"Wait, what? I've never had different kind of underwear? Huh, I wonder." You're probably thinking now, like, "I wonder what kind that I could actually get."
Right?
But yeah, no,
Um
that's crazy that that happened.
Yeah, and so right after graduation, before going to grad school, an opportunity for a volunteer trip came up, and the trip is called AIDS Life Cycle. It's a charity bike ride that goes from San Francisco to LA, and I was gonna volunteer on the sports med team. And I had some classmates who'd done it a few times, and so 2 of them were going again that year, and I was like, "Yeah, you know what? Like, I'm graduated. This will probably be good for me." And I go on this trip, and that was the last time that I wore my garments because I get there for the trip. We stopped at Target, do, like, a little Target run. I bought, like, I don't know, the most conservative, like, multi-pack. I was like, "Hey, whatever gets me through the week," because it's a week-long trip. And then it was like that was it, and I went through that week practicing sports med and helping out these people, and it was kind of almost like, again, like, my heart and my mind was open, and I was interacting with people from across the country, all with individual stories, individual backgrounds, and a majority of them being LGBTQ, few allies as well, but that meant dozens of different stories from people of coming out and stories of people being accepted or not being accepted, and how some of them resonated and matched with me and some of them didn't. It made me realize that I wasn't alone and that my journey is just as valid as anyone else's. I realize now that you did ask, how did my family find out? How did they take it? So it was back during the time after it was after that t- talk or devotional that I went to. They do semi-annual, so every 6 months, like church-wide broadcasting. I didn't watch this one, but there were some talks and speeches given that didn't resonate well and was hurtful to some LGBTQ people. And there's someone that they were my brother's age, and they their family grew up near our family, so we knew him pretty well. And he was a out and proud gay man, and my family knew that, and they were still friends with him. My brothers were still friends. My parents were somewhat open, but really still pretty closed off to the idea, and I accidentally outed myself on on a post, and they saw my comment, and they reached out to me, and they're like, "We're" and it's like, "Why would you make such a comment like that? Like, what's going on? You need to explain this to us." And it was that moment I basically had to say, I was like, "Yep, this is me." I was like, "Known for a while now, and I'm not gonna run away from it, that I'm bisexual and that I am not going to be afraid of it. I'm not gonna run away from it, and that it's my reality, and the reason why I said those things is because they are genuinely hurtful." And so my parents didn't take it super well. And again, I credit my group therapy helping me get through this. I hated to be the center of attention and I hated to be the topic of discussion, but they were all super, super helpful in me getting through it. But, I basically got a lot of what people would talk about, like stereotypical, like my dad did the whole, we don't support this, but we love you anyway. But also for some reason had to throw in like your mom's been crying all day and like, we need to work this out. We need to talk about this. And I didn't really want to have those conversations at the time because like what's there to talk about? Like, are you gonna try and talk me out of it? Because like, no. And yeah, it's like, oh, your mom's crying. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
And
you yeah.
yeah, well, I was I was just gonna say, I was like, it took quite a few years, and it took quite a few negative experiences to happen, both to me with them, but also that they witnessed in the communities around them, for them to actually start coming to terms with everything, because they were still pretty and, like, I would definitely say my parents will still have their moments, but it I think they didn't realize the severity that lack of support can lead to, and then once they started to learn what that could lead to, they started to change their tune a little bit, and that all occurred, honestly, in the last, like, 4 years. So
Right.
fairly recently, and that's after finding out 6 years ago, so it took they did the whole, like, hate the sin, love the sinner type of thing, but when it really came face to face at it, they did kick me out of their house in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, and I had to scramble to find a place to live for a temporary point of view, and then made my way back down to Vegas, realizing that it was probably the safest place for me to be. Funnily enough, I my roommate was awesome. We're still super, super great friends, and I'd do anything for him. But yeah, it was up and down, and it wasn't until about a year or so after kicking me out that my dad, like, genuinely apologized and told me that he never realized, like, the way that he treated me and his behaviors and actions while he would say, the love word, like, it didn't actually convey love. And so our relationship is better now, but it got really rocky after that, and yeah, just kinda realized, and I think that's why Vegas was so good and why I loved my time there and why I tell people, even though I was only there for about 2.5 years, but it really was the most formative parts of my life, and that I learned what family truly means, and that family's not, something of blood. It's something of love and care and true support no matter what.
Right, and I'm happy that you were able to find that within the Vegas community that you found, and I'm really happy that you were able to, within those years, come to who you are, and, like, you went through so much, and you went through so much, like, pain and hurt and suffering too. You walked this road of, like, "This is who I am, this is who I wanna be," even if it's not traditional in any sense of the word, especially within the LDS community, even though it's not the traditional way, you were still able to come to who you are and love yourself for it, and then people around you started to be like, "This is Sarah, this is my family, I see her for who she is, and I love her for it, and this is just this is how it is," and you're sticking to what you know and what you believe and being who you are, so, yeah, so thank you for sharing all of that and for being so open and for being so honest and for just kind of showing us that even though you have to go through so much hurt and pain that at the end of the road, there's light. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and
Mhm.
you're the version of that light.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that is so funny that like and I appreciate that you recognize that because growing up in the church and even nowadays they'll still say it where they almost try to scare you out of being different and out of leaving and telling you like, "Oh, you'll never find true happiness outside of the church. You'll never find true love and acceptance and you'll never actually be happy. Those people that you see, they say they're happy, but they're not actually happy. They're lying to themselves." And it's only darkness when you leave, and honestly, for me, it's been the complete opposite, like, I I don't live in a constant fear of things anymore, fear of myself, fear of the world around me, I don't live in this thought process of, every time I meet someone, I gotta find out, like, strange details. Like, I didn't realize so many things from my upbringing were so weird until I got out. Like, oh, my coworkers here in Washington love to hear my Utah stories, and they'll just make the funniest faces. They're like, "I'm sorry, what?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just how it was. That's how life was." And you just accepted it, and then I come out here and I remember my first day of work out here and my boss walking with me as we were leaving and he's like, "Oh, first day done. How are you liking it? How are you enjoying the experience?" And I said to him like, it's honestly really strange to me that I'm meeting all these people and it's one of the first questions that they're asking me is not, "What church do you go to?" And he's like, "Oh, oh, no, no, people no." Like
Yeah,
he
that's
was
pretty
surprised.
funny.
He's like, he was shocked to hear, like, "Oh, no, that's how it is in Utah." Like, oh, you get a new neighbor, you meet a new person, like, 3 sentences in, you're like, "Oh, what church do you go to?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, people around here don't really care, like, what church you go to." Like, some people do, of course, those people are everywhere, but I'm like, "No, that is the standard, like, 'Hi, nice to meet you, I'm so and so,' like, 'Oh, do you do you have a family, blah, blah, blah. Oh, what church do you go to?'" And
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just so wild to just not have that be the immediate judgment people have of me, like, people get to know me for me, not for some, like, ritual practice that I might do once a week,
Mhm.
and it and I do it just because I have, the fear of God put into me, and instead, like
Yeah. And that's how it should be. Like, people should know you for you and not for being just solely part of, like, the LDS church.
yeah.
Yeah. So, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing everything here. Like I love having conversations like this with people because I learned so much more about like you and your story and more of like what you've gone through the past few years. And like while we've been friends and known each other since I don't even know how long, it's like there's still more that I'm learning about you. And I'm always just so blown away from all the things you had to go through to where you are now. And I just want to say, like, thank you again so much for coming on and being open and vulnerable and sharing your experiences and sharing what it's like going from a devout LDS faith goer to being someone who you are authentically and being a proud member of the LGBTQ and just someone that is living their life to the fullest and you're like in the you're in amazing relationship now and your husband is awesome, and it seems like you're really happy and you have, like, everything that just you just seem so much lighter. So, it's been crazy watching you grow, and I just wanna say thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your story and for sharing that journey, today.
Well, I appreciate you wanting to share my story and thinking thinking that my story is worth sharing. I think that there's nothing really like unique about me or my struggles and I just kinda hope that maybe someone hears my story and can maybe relate to part of it and realize that it does get better. There's a lot of nuances and things that have helped and not helped in that aspect, but things do get better. There is a light at the end, and, the future can be bright even if it doesn't feel like it.
Absolutely. Thank you again so, so much. I really do appreciate you coming on and for you sharing and for you just being open and honest and true. And that's what we need in the world, I
Mm.
think. And again, I really appreciate you and for our friendship and for the acceptance that we have with each other and for the love that we have for each other. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to rate, send us a comment, and share the podcast. If you're interested in coming on the show as a guest, send me a DM over at Jules Unscripted Pod on Instagram. Tune in next week for more episodes with Jules Unscripted. Bye!